All right, mic check. Okay, sounds like the microphones are working. Good. All righty. I will be on camera in just a moment here as I finish setting up. How is everyone doing today? I think at the moment there might not actually be anybody in chat, which is not surprising. I gave a short heads up to everybody and don't keep a very regular schedule at the moment, so apologies to everyone. Hey Des, welcome. How are you doing today? So I was planning on having this painting, your painting does the for your charity event done, but last night my schedule got all messed up because I uh, I decided to go out and socialize a little because I thought it might be good for my mental health. And then um, I lost something of mine, and I ended up having to drive all the way back to go pick it up, and just killed my evening time wise. It was socialize. Yeah, I know. That was probably, I'd say it was a mistake, but I don't think it really was a mistake. I just wish I hadn't lost my earbuds there. All right, let's put this. So it's like it's a bit of a long drive, and I had to do it like, back and forth, and then back and forth again. So just kind of killed my night last night. And yeah, so I was planning on having this done, but didn't have the time. The reason the variety stream for today is because I'm hoping to have this done and to actually start on another or get back to another painting. Might be overly ambitious, but what can I say? But this is almost done. I mean, there's obviously more stuff to do here, but it's pretty close to finished. There's like a few details that obviously need some work, but very minor stuff. The eyes obviously need some work, and the hair, which is going to be fun. And there's a little thing on the nose, but and some beard detail, but that is not a ton. It's just a ton of details and stuff. So, yeah. Let's see. Hopefully it's dry and I can actually oil it out today. That would be ideal. I think it is. Yeah, well, little colors coming off, but not enough for me to care. Cool. I can oil out today. Yes. That makes me happy. Because up until now, a lot of times when I've been working on this painting, a lot of the painting has been semi-dry. So a lot of it's either been completely dry or semi-dry. So you get a lot of different, like part of it's tacky, part of it's not. It's just not great. But now that it's all dry, I can just oil out the whole thing and then it will all feel a bit better. It's looking fantastic. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you like it so far. I'm just getting my brushes right now. I forgot to, oh, I didn't get them prepared soon enough. I'm just getting them out right now, cleaning them off before I use them because I leave them in mineral oil and I don't want to get any mineral oil into my painting. The fact that my painting's still dry within like the normal, expected time range to me indicates that, you know, I'm pretty much getting all the mineral spirit or mineral oil. That's mineral spirits, mineral oil out of the brush because that stuff never dries. So now I need this one. I need a brush. I have a brush that's like it kind of not a bristle brush, but it's what's it called? What's the word I'm looking for? Splayed. It's kind of a messed up brush, but I can use the splayed bristles to uh, get hair, more hair texture, stuff like that. I do have a comber brush, but I feel like using the comber brush for the first time, uh, I don't know, I don't feel like I need it right for the first. I'll just use the old brush that I have right now. By the way, if you hear any music at all, coming from my stream, let me know. You shouldn't hear music, but I worry sometimes that the microphone's going to pick up what's in my head, in my headphones, and uh, YouTube is really strict about that stuff, and I don't want to get, a copyright strike or anything like that. All right, time to oil out. I am running low on oleo gel, so I'm going to oil out with walnut oil. Walnut oil tends to be a little slicker than a lot of other oils, and also I think it hardens to a more, what's the word I'm looking for? Solid uh, barrier. So it's less porous, I think, which is why I have issues with varnish beading up on it. And that's one of the reasons I like to oil out with oleo gel most of the time, not walnut oil. However, I do really believe that this is probably going to be my last layer. So I feel like it will probably be fine. Um, and I think it'd probably be fine anyways. It's not a huge concern. There are ways to mitigate it. A little Gamsol will, you know, open up those pores of the oil of the barrier. So there are ways to fix it. Obviously, I could always sand it too, in theory. I have tried sanding with oil, so wet sanding. I won't do dry sanding, but I've tested out wet sanding and it works. It's pretty okay. It's not my favorite, but it works. I'm gonna clean up my palette too. I often like to carry my palette over from, paint session to paint session because it's like you already mixed up the colors, so why not just reuse the colors that you have? However, um, sometimes it's good to uh, start fresh because that way you're more open to making different choices and you're not like bogged down by the choices that you've made previously. And Des is right about this too. Des says sometimes it gets gummy. It does get gummy over time. That's another reason I'm cleaning it up. Most of my paint is kind of getting gummy, but this stuff up here is fresher, so that's why it's just staying up there. I, made it into a pile and I'll just keep it and reuse it. It's also very light and an easy color to incorporate into it. So this is kind of a side thing, but yesterday I was talking to a friend of mine at the art meetup thing I went to. And it was really funny because it just kind of worked out perfectly. He was talking about his studio space and how he kind of wants to get an easel in there, but he doesn't have a lot of space in his studio. And he either wants an easel that can like hang on the wall and then he can pull it out, or just like a wall easel. And it was funny because I'd just seen someone on Instagram who had a wall easel, and and I was looking at it and I'm like, I think I could reverse engineer this in some manner. Um, and so I was like, it was kind of perfect timing. So we might be like installing a wall easel in his studio, and I was thinking about, I don't know, either offering, to build wall easels for people who want them, and I can ship them out, obviously for a price, and not, it's not for free, but, um, I still like the idea, or offering the plans for people who want to just make it themselves. Something like that. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I was because the one I saw online, this company makes them, and they're very nice. You know, I don't want to like crap all over someone else's stuff. They're very nice. They're probably more premium than like I could make, but I think the price is probably more premium than I would charge. And I see a flaw in their design that I don't like very much. Um, so I thought, maybe I can improve on it. And flaw might be a little too harsh, but the thing I didn't like about their design was their what's it called? The thing I didn't like about the design was it, the easel moved up and like the easel moved up and down, but and the top moved up and down, but the sides were stuck in place. So I I felt like then the whatever put there, if it fell in between the like sidebars, it would have no back support, which if you're using a stretched canvas probably isn't a big deal. But on other things, I want back support. Does ask, is it the type of thing that just is it the type that's just slats across the wall? No, it's not that. Um, the slats across the wall, I don't like that design. I really don't like that design. Yeah, I'm really not a fan of that design. And I can explain why. Sorry, one second. I just realized I need to adjust this a little. It shifted. Um, so, yeah, the slats across the wall. It's basically just French cleats, I think they're called. Um, that they're just bars that go across the wall, and they have a 45-degree slant. And then whatever you want to paint, you have to attach one of those bars to it as well, so it sits in it. And that's what I don't like, because there's no way of like a lot of things I work on, there's no way of attaching the other side to it without damaging it to some degree. I don't like that. You could possibly build some kind of frame, but it's getting too complicated. There's a place for the French cleat wall, especially on certain sizes. The other thing I don't like about it is that you have very specific like up and down movements that you can do, and I also don't like that you can't turn it on its side. In theory, if I needed to, I could take this painting, put it on its side, and paint, or upside down. You can't really do that. So I don't like that. No, this one that I saw, I've seen a few different kinds of wall easels. Jerry's has a couple. Blick has one, I think, too. And this other company I saw, like I said, what they do is it's basically it's two rails on the side that attach to the wall, and then the bottom part of the easel and the top part of the easel run on those rails. I'm oversimplifying it, of course, but that's how you do it, right? And like I said, to me, the problem is that the rails sit a bit off of the wall. So if you're working on a painting that is that's smaller than the rails, then it's sitting with no back behind it. You know what I mean? There's a gap between the painting and the wall. And I don't like that very much. Maybe that's a good thing. I don't like it. The other thing that I'm not sure about, like I said, I'm kind of trying to design it. The other two issues I have with it is that to raise the bottom of the easel, it's two knobs, one on each rail. I'm not a fan of that because then you have to use both hands at the same kind of thing. I feel like that might be a little awkward. Maybe it's fine, maybe not. And then those are my main two issues with it, I think. I also, yeah, I'd say those are probably my main two issues with it. But I'm not sure that there's like I said, I'm not sure. I'm kind of mentally going over the design, trying to figure out what would be the best, design kind of thing. Like what are the things I'm looking for? And of course, best design and also easy design. That's super important. It needs to be pretty easy to use and to build and to install. Like those are the things that are going through my head. But the other thing is, one of the things that I like about it is that it's versus the French cleat wall is the French cleat wall, you have to do so many boards into the wall, or you have to build a huge board that has all the boards on, and then you attach it. You know what I mean? This would only have to be attached, in like maybe 4 places, on top and then on bottom, maybe in the studs, something like that, something simple, nothing crazy. You need something that is adjustable so you can sit or stand to paint. Well, I'll be honest, the design that I'm coming up with in theory could work. The only problem would be, the only problem would be that you'd be sitting up against the wall, and that might not be comfortable. The other problem is I feel like, okay, here's what I'll say. if you're mostly working on small paintings, I honestly think my portable setup is way better than a wall easel type of thing. If you're going to go bigger, the wall easel or a regular easel or something will be more useful. But if you're keeping them small, the portable one, so much more comfortable and versatile. Because it's a tripod, you know, and you can set up a tripod. You can set it at any height or whatever. But in theory, a sit stand, you would just need to make the mast of it, or the masts, however it's designed. You just need to make them long enough is the issue, right? Otherwise, it's totally doable to make it adjustable. Actually, yeah, I can think of a few ways of designing it. Honestly, I actually just thinking about it, I'm like, I can think of a few ways to make it adjustable so that it can be sit stand. If you do long masts, it might be harder to ship it. Although if you build it yourself, that's not a problem. But there might be other options of partitioning it into two pieces, which sounds odd, but that easily could work because you would only need it to a certain height, and then you could have a second one. Because I've seen easels that have like two bars on it, so it's not that crazy. Because I've seen other easels like, and when I say other easels, I mean like just, you know, like normal like H-frame easels type of thing. That's what I'm referring to. Okay, let me adjust my camera real quick because I see it's got a little wonky here. No, that didn't do anything. Filter. The only thing I do wonder is like sitting at a wall. I'm not sure. Like part of me thinks it'd be fine. Part of me wonders if it would be an issue. And of course, the other issue is that this type of easel, you could kind of tilt. In theory, you could kind of tilt the painting a little bit, but not a lot. It wouldn't have the tilt built into it unless you really wanted the tilt built into it, in which case there's a way of doing that. It's just that becomes a lot more work, I think. That says, yeah, I can see a problem with leaning forward. Yeah, that is the overall problem with sitting, honestly. That is one of the problems with sitting when painting. And I don't know what the real solution is for that, honestly. Because I have a stool and I can kind of lean back on it, but I usually end up leaning forward, like even though I can in theory kind of lean back, I end up kind of, because I can, it's like a standing stool kind of thing. So you know, you kind of lean against it, but I end up forward still. And in fact, at one point I was streaming and painting sitting down. I used to do that. And that ended up being very problematic for me because it would actually mess up my back more than standing. I forgot I need to put out some more black paint. But yeah, that ended up sitting ended up actually messing up my back more because because I had to kind of like lean forward and kind of like, you know, uh, turn my, like, stretch my back in all kinds of weird ways that was, I didn't think were that uncomfortable, but they put enough strain on like my back and some weird like minor muscles like in my ribs and stuff like that that it ended up messing up my back way more. That says I pinched a nerve when I paint at my desk. I think it's from reaching forward. Not sure how to fix this. Is it in your back or your arm or your shoulder or your neck? Basically, where is it? I guess is what I'm asking, because I could have well, not a solution, but mitigating factors. Neck, shoulder. Okay, so I can totally see that. Obviously, that like the first thing, anytime there's an injury, obviously talk to your doctor, and then physical therapy. Those are like the go-tos, right? Like I said, obviously I'm not a doctor, so go talk to your doctor. I don't know. Physical therapy, I've had, helped me a lot. I'm still not, I still probably need to do more physical therapy, but whatever. And then the other thing I could say is I find when standing, first of all, my neck and shoulders have gotten stronger for painting. I remember when I did a stream once where I was drawing and my like hand got so tired so fast, and now it's a lot easier for me. So it can get stronger. The other thing is get a solid maul stick that you can really like rest your hand on. That can help a lot. And if you don't have a good like place to lean it against, then you need a sturdier, I would say a sturdier easel, or something designed on your easel to make it easier to rest your maul stick against. For instance, my easel has a very small, you can't really see it here, but it has just a small piece of wood that's like maybe this big. That's like the top, the top part. And it's solid, but the problem is that sometimes if I want to put my maul stick, in theory, if I want my maul stick over here, I have nowhere to lean it against that's good. I can kind of lean it against the board, but it's a little awkward because I have to be very careful not to get it in the paint. So creating something, like a frame or something that you can kind of rest it on is good. And you can even go further with that and create like hooks or notches or something, or, that the maul stick, this is just fabric, but you could create a maul stick that like hooks on it, so then it really won't let go easily, and that can give you a ton of support. Also, you can make it a lot thicker than this, or wider, so it's not, digging into your hand. Stuff like that can be helpful. Just a thought, Basically something strong enough that you can actually rest your hand on, not just steady your hand, Your maul stick is actually a cane that has a rubber end. That's good, although the rubber end, I don't know. Like I said, if you personally, I guess it just depends, but yeah, I I would look into like making it sturdy enough. It won't slip. Okay, that's good. So maybe use it more. Might be helpful. But yeah, otherwise, I'm not entirely sure. I will say posture, can help obviously. Um, getting used to certain posture and so on. More than posture though, also movement, which I know is hard, but you know, the like constant stepping back, going forward, that type of thing, I think helps a lot. That was one thing that I couldn't do when I was sitting, right? And it's good for it's great for perspective on the painting and everything, but it's also good for um, just not, like helping my back and make it so my legs don't hurt as much as I paint. Stuff like that. But yeah, the obvious thing is just stretches, stuff like that. The sitting, yeah, it's tough. The other they do have there are stools that can like shop stools and stuff like that can roll. I'm on carpet, so I can't use them, but stuff like that might be helpful for sitting. They also have these. There are these stools that have a what's it called? It's a elbow rest that moves. It can move like forward. So it basically you sit on the stool and you move it in front of you and you can rest your elbow on it. If I'm not mistaken, it's for dentists originally, but I have thought about buying one of those. I ended up not, but once again, that's because I don't think I could even use it here very well. Um, but I did look into it. That might be something that could be useful. The other thing I thought might be helpful is they have those kneeling like those kneeling chairs where you sit on it, but you sit on your knees and on your like I don't know, it's supposed to be for good posture and all that stuff. I don't, it's one of those things where it's like I could never use that all day, but to add variety to my um you know to my setup for a little while, it might be good. And I'm also just thinking about things that would allow me to lean forward in a comfortable manner. You know what I mean? Because that's the big issue is that I don't know how to paint you know, relaxed leaning back. I just don't know how to do that. Like I have to be, either straight up or I'm probably going to want to be leaning forward. So there's those, and there's also these chairs that have like the back of them. It's like a regular office chair, but the back of it kind of looks like a T. Um, and the idea is that you can flip it around and use the T part under your arms, kind of thing, as like armrests, and your legs go under the T part. So yeah, I don't know if that makes sense, but I saw that as well, and I'm like, oh, that might work, because then it would give you the back support would turn into stomach support, I guess. Um, I was like, oh, maybe that could work. You know, I mean, it just depends. I can also see potential problems with it, for certain people, but that says big boobs issues. Yeah, anyone with big boobs or like a huge gut, I could see it being a problem. Like, I could easily see the beer belly getting in the way if you're like one of those people, that yeah, I'm sure you've seen the guys who look pregnant, like that kind of thing. Yeah, I could see that being an issue too. So, depends on the person, but. And then the last one I saw, which I would never sit in, but like for some people will love this. There are the chairs that let you sit crisscross. Personally, I would never ever want to sit in that, but some people like that. Some people like sitting like that. The the birthing balls, those giant inflatable balls, I'd fall over it. Oh yeah, those giant inflatable balls, exercise balls or whatever they are. I yeah, I don't. Those don't look. Uh, I've sat on them before. They're not comfortable. Um, I know they're supposed. I don't know. The claim is that they're good for your back and posture. I don't feel like they are, but whatever. Also, I don't think my ADHD will like I suspect that bouncing nonstop is not going to help me paint well. Just like I suspect that will kind of be an issue. Like I already run into the problem where like I shake my leg so violently when I'm sitting down sometimes that like my whole desk will shake. And I have to like force myself to stop. Um, if I'm on something that like bounces, I feel like that might be a problem. Also, I'm pretty sure one of the cats would end up popping it too. Probably Dresden. He likes he likes scratching the walls and plastic and silicone. So yeah, I feel like he'd end up just popping it. Oh yeah, for sure, not good with cats. Yeah, yeah. I don't think it's a very cat-friendly thing. I mean, some cats won't have an issue with it. I know that for sure. But yeah, Dresden is cannot be trusted with this type of thing. No way. Way, way too light. Wanted to soften that up a bit, not do what I just did. Trying to soften up that edge a little bit, but I had to kind of move it over a little too. There we go. Alrighty. Alrighty. Let's see here. All right. The nose is just ever so slightly out of place. This is the problem with how I paint. Everything just kind of shifts as I go along, but yeah. The thing now though is that it's literally like, you know, at the moment, some of these things are like differences of like millimeters. When it's at this stage, it's so finicky and so like, you know, I don't even want to say precise because it's, it's not even about precision all the time. It's just like because it's never going to be perfectly precise at least. And I don't think precision should really be the like goal, but I still have a hard time letting go of some things. when likeness is involved, at least. Much as I love the nose, I'm trying to soften that edge just a teeny tiny bit. And I went a little too light with it, so I'll knock that lightness down a bit. Because it's still technically in the shadows. Okay, that's too bright. One trap that's real easy to fall into, and this is something I definitely fall into sometimes, is that, there's already paint on the canvas, and obviously paint will mix, the paints will mix with what you're putting down, especially if everything's wet. And it's easy to kind of, what's it called? Thin down your paints and use the colors that are already there and so on, which makes sense. However, and to use that to blend, because it's like, oh, well, the color's there, so you just put a little bit of the color and you kind of blend to it, and it makes sense. And I don't want to say that it's wrong to do that. However, sometimes, or most of the time, it's a lot better to just mix the color you want and go in a lot stronger or bolder and cover up what you already have and not mess around with it that much. And sometimes that means you have to mix, the in-between colors over and over again to kind of make that transition, but I still think it's usually better. Nope. For instance, here I could, in theory, just try and blend the two colors, but I think it's better to mix the in-between color and go in between. I messed up now, but I still think the in-between color is better now because of that. I just need to go back and fix this part again. That was just because I was being imprecise. Don't get me wrong, blending is still, you end up doing a lot of it, but you don't want to over blend. There's no, I feel like that's a thing that a lot of people overdo. They over blend. And I do too. The pinky, like resting my hand on the, not the canvas, but on the, um, on the board with my pinky is usually my go-to. However, this painting is now too large and I can't really do that. His nose was just a teensy bit too large. I'm gonna have to go back and do the highlights on his nose again, like some of the like brightest highlights, but noses really are tough. I really struggle with them sometimes. Let's see here. That's so close. Okay, you know what? I do think I overdid it a little with the highlight on his nose. And the inside of his nose, I mean. Yeah, I made it too bright. So the way I'm going to address it is I'm going to try and put in a darker value but more saturated color in there, which the idea is that it will give the illusion of the glow but bring the value down. And it's already better, but needs to blend in a little better too. Des says, "Oh yeah, nice. Thank you, Des." Yeah, it was just sticking out just a little too much when I stepped away from it, you know. The thing is, usually there's like one of the rules, not rules, but you know, guidelines, I guess, is that when something's in the shadows, nothing in the shadows can be lighter than anything that's like in the light area, which makes sense, you know, in theory. But the problem is that like sometimes, you know, especially when you're not in like a studio environment, sometimes you can have really weird light sources where like, you know, something reflects really brightly but and catches just like one area, you know. And so that rule, while it's like a good rule of thumb with complicated light sources that, you know, environments, like you can get these weird lighting patterns. And so it's hard to tell sometimes. All right, I need to give my camera a short break because like it's getting warm in here. Let me see. I feel like the AC was turned up or something because like it is actually warm in here. Yeah, that's a lot better, I think. For the nose, I mean. All right, I am still here. Let me just step out and check the AC. Alrighty. All right. It's just really warm in here. Not much I can do about it. Okay, so looking at this, I do think I need to move the shadow of the nose just a bit over, just a little more. Minor. I'm gonna leave that for now because I've fiddled with the nose too much. I need to hit the hair, I think, because I'll start bringing everything together. I think that's next. The eyes also need work, but probably be the last thing I touch, or nearly the last thing I touch. One thing that's really hard is I still struggle with this because I haven't found like a foolproof way of dealing with it is eyelashes. You don't I don't want to paint in every eyelash, especially on guys, but you still need to kind of indicate them, and they're so fine. It can be really tough. That says, yeah, ditto. Yeah, eyelashes are tough, really tough to deal with. You know, if you're like super zoomed in on an eye, it's different, but like 90% of the time, you're not, you know. If you're painting attractive women, you know, usually you can kind of, it's not as much of a problem, and you need to get the shape right, but no one's going to complain if you accentuate the eyelashes most of the time, you know. Um, but and because they're fuller, generally speaking, you can combine them and make, you know, and because you can combine them, it's more, and so if you know, it's easier to paint. It's not so fiddly. But with everyone else, it's a lot more fiddly and difficult. One of the tricks I learned from photo retouching is when you're one of the issues is sometimes you have, you know, you need to clean up the hair, like flyaway hair from behind the person. But if you clean it up too much, it looks like a helmet of hair. So sometimes you have to uh, sometimes you can keep some of the hair that's back there, but a lot of times what you have to do is clean it all up and then paint in the flyaway hairs, but in a way that looks more pleasing, you know? Um, and so you would think, like, logically, the way to do that is select the color of the hair, select a really fine brush, maybe soften up the edges of the brush, and paint in, you know, the hair. that doesn't look very natural most of the time. So what you really need to do is get a color that is kind of a blend between the hair color and the background color and use that. And a lot of times you have to vary like the color pattern. This is specifically for backgrounds, but it does apply to hairs if you're painting someone like here and you need to have hairs that go over certain areas. Sometimes if you take the hair color and just do a really fine line over, it doesn't look right. It kind of looks like cat whiskers more. So the trick is to blend it visually, like pick a color that is a visual blend of like the color it's supposed to be and the background and use that, if that makes sense. And I was wrong. I'm not doing the hair just yet. I'm doing some of the face eyebrows basically. Oh, my phone just buzzed. Let me make sure it's nothing important. Nope, nothing important. So yeah, that's one of the tricks for eyelashes. Okay, now let's get to some of the hair. I'm just mixing up some of my hair color, pre-mixing basically some of it. Not a ton because I don't mind mixing on the fly, but I do want to have just a bit a bit mixed. Reasonably, I could probably mix a ton more because of how much hair there is to do. But yeah. And I am using a filbert brush today, which I don't normally use, but I have one, so I thought I'd give it a shot. Again, it is kind of good for some smoother, softer stuff sometimes. I am going to have to go in here and model some of this hair a little more. Probably put in some more dark areas to like give it a little more shape. I am using like the edges of the brush to get some of that, the hairs of the brush to get some of that texture. Hey, Des. Um, Not sure what you're saying in that chat. She's your buddy? Um, One of the view. I don't. Oh, I didn't see her. Okay, I didn't realize there was a viewer. Welcome. This is cool to watch. Oh, thank you. It's whatever. Welcome. Thank you so much. I didn't realize you were here. I um I don't really pay attention, or not. I don't pay attention. I have too many screens up, and it's hard for me to see like if people aren't chatting. I basically don't realize that they're viewing. And put it that way. But welcome. How are you doing today? Oh, thank you, Des. I appreciate that. You're doing great? Good. Glad to hear that. You used to love to paint. I have not in years, so I kind of lived that a little through others. You're very talented. Oh, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Um, I always, I understand, like, I do understand, life gets in the way and everything. I always encourage people to do art if they love it. You know, uh, but I do understand it's not always an option. That says he's helping out a project. My sister is feeling overwhelmed. Ah, yes, yes, yes. This is the charity project that Des is doing, and I am happy to be a part of. Very, very small part of, because ultimately I'm just doing a single painting. But yeah. It's whatever it says. Portraits, I think, are the hardest. I used to like to paint nature. Oh, that's great. Uh, Nature paintings also sell really well. Not that, not that you have to do art to sell it, but I wish I enjoyed painting landscapes as much as I enjoy uh, painting people. That says landscapes are hard. Yeah, I'll be honest. I think if you're not as interested in something, it's harder. I think the people who are like more interested in landscapes find it easier than portraits because they're interested in it. And the people who are more interested in portraits find landscapes harder because, they're not as interested in it. That's my theory, at least. But yeah, landscapes are great. I really struggle with them. Well, yeah, I struggle with them. There's just too much stuff. That's what the problem I have with landscapes. To me, it's just too much stuff everywhere. Anytime I'm painting something with like all that stuff, I struggle with it. Landscapes, interiors, I think that I find it overwhelming, all the like just stuff, and to me, I struggle with it for whatever reason. I know some people don't. It's easy, or find it easier to like break it down or whatever. But for me, that's the experience kind of thing. That says, I love landscapes and nature and scenery, but it's too much stuff, as Liad says. Maybe just simplifying it is the answer. Yeah, there are definitely techniques to simplify it and everything. It's challenging. I do think the more you do it, the easier it becomes, just like anything, right? Um, but I also I have a suspicion that some of this could be tying into some um, of people's particular neurodivergent potential, I don't want to say issues, but way of being. Because like I'm pretty sure I've met some people who are uh, autistic, and they enjoy doing a lot of like very detailed and repetitive things. Very I've seen some that are very structured. Very good minds, like very good mind for like technical stuff and things like that, which is cool. And then um, I could like I get overwhelmed by stuff in general. Like if there's just a lot of like like just visual noise and stuff like that. Like I struggle with that in general. And I think the same applies to painting, or at least that's my theory. Could be wrong, but it kind of makes sense to me a little bit. It's whatever. When you used to paint, what was your preferred medium? This says, I've seen a lot of artists later whose style looks like very structured and almost their own paint by numbers. Yeah, I've seen artists. There's some artists who paint like that. definitely. I've seen some artists like that. Whatever says I used oil paints and it was more in high school, early college, which was 20 years ago. I just got started and stopped. Okay. Wait, you just got started again, or you mean then is when you started? Then. Ah, got it. Well, I know I know how hard it can be to get back into things, but it's always I always encourage people to get back into making art, because I feel like it's so good for people in general to make art. But I do understand it's hard. I will say this. Um, let's see. It's whatever it says, and I enjoyed painting. I never pursued it. You don't have to. You don't have to pursue. I feel like people put too much pressure on pursuing it for, like career wise. I messed that up. Um, I think people should make art just to make art. Don't get me wrong. I understand why people want to pursue it as a career. I get that. But I also think that I've had way too many talks with people who, just put way too much pressure on themselves. And I'm like, just do it for fun. Uh, you know, that's not to say that you're not an artist if you do it for fun. I don't think that at all. I think you are an artist if you do it for fun. I just think sometimes people put too much pressure on themselves. And then it becomes that thing of like, well, if I'm not going to make it into a profession, why even bother? I get that too. So yeah. Um, I was going to say I have some friends who uh, they got back into painting, and one of the ways that they got back into it was they was landscapes, and the way that they did it was they didn't do it with oils, they did it with gouache specifically because the the like what's it called? The setup and you know, the setup is so much smaller and more portable and easier to like take out at a moment's notice. So they would keep it in the car, and then they would, go places, take a break in the car, paint literally from the car sometimes, with like a really tiny portable setup. And then that was it, you know. And they did that for quite a while until they started like really getting into it. I thought that was great. I've tried painting with gouache. I used to plein air paint with gouache too. The only time it was ever really an issue was one time when I was in the desert, um, and it was so hot that the paint would dry on my brush between like the canvas, between the mixing it and the canvas. But that was just one time. It was like ridiculously dry and hot at the same time. What is that? Gouache? Gouache it's an opaque oil paint. Sorry, not oil paint. It's an opaque watercolor. My brain. It's an opaque watercolor. Um, and it's, yeah, that's all it is. It's just an opaque watercolor. It's a little thicker than, it's thicker than watercolor. There's a few versions of it. There's acrylic gouache, which is a combination of gouache and acrylic. And so once it dries, you can't reactivate it. Regular gouache is like watercolor, like the watercolor pans. And when you use it, you can reactivate it with enough water. So you have to be a little careful when layering. It's got its limitations as far as like the amount that you can layer, and it's got some other limitations that are, unique to the medium, but it's still a really good medium. Donley says, "Hey, Donley, welcome." Donley says gouache spelled weird, in case you want to look it up. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Donley. That's really, really helpful of you. Welcome, Donley. For those who don't know Donley, Donley is a streamer as well. He streams digital art. Clearly, he's very friendly and helpful. And his streams are a lot of fun too, so check him out. How you doing? That says, Jen, if you want to paint, I'll send you a bunch of links to free tutorials and stuff. There are some really good ones. And also Liada's been a great resource for me since I started using oils. Oh yeah, happy to help. I love oils. I prefer them to gouache, personally. However, I recognize that the setup time sometimes is a little much. Um, so I get it, I do understand that sometimes, like the convenience. Like, I mean, even, what's his name? Sargent used to do watercolor studies when he would go plein air paint. He didn't bring his oils. He would do watercolor studies. So, you know, I get it. It's not always convenient to take your oil paints. Um, but yeah, what's nice is with gouache, you can have a really compact setup. Like you can get like a really tiny little like pochade box with a mixing area and like a little place for your paper. And the thing is, because it dries so fast, and you can technically paint inside of a sketchbook. Um, you don't have to worry about like wet panel carriers and all that nonsense like you do with oil painting. Um, so there's a lot of convenience to it for sure. Watercolor too. It's just gouache. The reason I mentioned gouache is it feels a little closer to oil paints than watercolors do, Not to say that I don't love watercolors, it's just watercolor feels so different. Whereas gouache, feels just a little closer to oil paints because they are opaque. And yeah, if you want recommendations on brands or something like that, there are options out there. If you stick around for a little bit longer, when I take a break, I can show you. I think I have one or two gouache paintings that I can actually get to from here. I can show you some of the older paintings I was doing when I was going plein air painting, and I'd bring my gouache paints with me. But eventually, what happened was I was only painting when I was only plein air painting because there was a group of people in LA, and I would only have time on the weekends, so I'd get together with them and go painting. And then during the week, I didn't have time with work and everything. So I was like, well, if all I'm going to do is plein air paint right now, I might as well plein air paint with oils. So because I really want to paint with oils. So I started doing that. And now that I say that, it's really sad because I realize like I should be a much better plein air painter than I am because how much I used to go out and do it. And I'm not a good plein air painter. It is just not in my skill set for whatever reason. I think the hair is starting to look good. It's a little messy, and he does have messy hair, to be sure, but it does need just a little more definition, I think. However, I'm going to hold off on that, give it a little time to kind of sit. I'll move on to other areas that need addressing and then come back to it. Okay, I need to give my camera a few minutes to cool down. I can get some I can see if I can reach one of my gouache paintings. I have a bunch of stuff over here right now because I was getting ready for that show, so everything's kind of messy over here. 1 second. Let's see. All right, here we go. Oh, here's 2 paintings. Donnelly, how soon is show for this piece? Oh, get some water too. Oh, drink. You mean to drink, or you mean watercolor painting? I don't remember when the show is, but I'll finish this. This says early September. I'll have this done, and it'll be dry within a couple days, and then I can varnish it and send it over. So this will be going out before end of the month, easy. So Des says water to drink. Sure, Des. Water. All right, so here's a small painting I did. This is a gouache painting. Let me see if I can get it in focus. I don't think it's a very good painting, but you know, I'm just sharing it. I don't think this was done plein air, to be fair. I think this was from a photo reference. And then this one, definitely not a plein air painting. This was definitely from photo reference. This is from a game, from the game Destiny. And it's actually not finished. I never ended up finishing this painting, but this is gouache. So gouache is a great medium. I do like it. I do have some issues with it as well. There are, it's not a perfect medium, but it is a good medium, and I will say, for the convenience, it is probably, I would say, one of the best. Ruth says, beautiful. Oh, thank you, Ruth. How are you doing tonight? And Des, I will drink some water, okay? Here's water. Ruth says, gouache is great, but it seems to dry so quick on my palette, and I always make too little of the color I need. Yes, that's a big problem with gouache. And the other problem is that it is nearly impossible to match your color perfectly. Ruth says, I'm good, actually, midday for me here in NZ, New Zealand? Is NZ New Zealand? I'm bad with that type of stuff. But yes, that's the other frustrating part about gouache is that, at least in my experience, there's a bit of a color shift when it dries. So darks dry a little lighter, light colors dry a little bit darker, and it is nearly impossible to match the colors once it dries. I can say, that says, yeah, acrylics too. Yes, that's my other issue. That's one of my issues with acrylics as well. I do have a Stay Wet palette for gouache, if you're familiar with that. It's a palette that has a very thin, flat sponge that goes in the bottom, and the palette paper has tiny little holes in it, and so some of that moisture comes through and it keeps the paints wet for longer. You can DIY it with like a damp paper towel, but it's not perfect. But even that isn't perfect because it will. I think there's the sponge can get moldy over time, which is gross. Obviously, you're meant to replace them every once in a while. Nothing is perfect. I've yet to find the absolute perfect thing, but yes, that is a solution that helps with the wet thing, with the paint drying too quickly. Also, mist bottles, like mist sprayers that spray a really fine mist, not a squirt bottle, but a mist bottle. It has to be very, very fine mist. That also helps. But yeah, it does dry really fast. That is a bummer. When I was when I started getting into gouache, I bought a mixing primary set from Holbein. So it's just it's actually very similar to my current palette, and which is it was basically a CMYK palette, although the cyan was more cyan color. So only 5 tubes, which is convenient at least. Ruth says, I've never tried oils. All I know, if you need some chemicals to use them, and they dry really slow. They do dry really slow compared to everything else. The chemicals, yes and no. How can I put this? Here's how I would put it. All paint can be toxic because the pigments are toxic, right? Oil does have some more traditional toxic pigments, but you don't have to use them. There are some chemicals that you can use that are very common, basically like paint thinner or mineral spirits. And you have to, if you use anything with that in it, you do have to have ventilation. Surprisingly, some acrylics can off gas because they're plastic, and when they dry, they can actually off gas. So acrylics, you actually have to be careful with and have ventilation too sometimes, depending on the acrylics. I got really sick from acrylic paint once. So, even though it's just acrylics, yeah, you have to be careful. You don't have to use what's it called? You don't have to use turpentine, or I use or Gamsol or whatever. And there are some alternatives that are safer, like Gamsol, and now there's Miracle Medium from um, Mgram, which not Mgram, Michael Harding, which seems to be completely safe and seems to work. Like I said, you don't have to use them, and there are ways of using them, safely. There's also another danger point that people aren't aware of, which is oil-soaked rags can spontaneously combust if disposed of improperly. And this is it for woodworkers as well. Like people who do woodworking and they use oil to like finish their wood projects. That's a danger for woodworkers as well. So you have to be careful of that. But oil paints, I think, are the easiest paints to use and the most forgiving paints to use. So I just enjoy working with them the most. Like the experience of working with oils for me is far better than any other painting medium I've used. Let's see, Des says, I use very little other than the paint. I use odorless solvents to clean the brushes. They take much less time to dry than you think. That's true. They don't take weeks and months to dry. A lot of people think it's like, oh, they take forever. No, they don't take that long. Literally, it can be dry within a day, unfortunately. And I say unfortunately because I like to work wet into wet. And I don't want my paint to dry, but they do dry, unfortunately. And then Ruth says, I only have watercolors and gouache, but I am hesitant creative, by which I mean I wish I painted and created more, but my perfectionism and inability to draw, not very skilled, hold me back. Okay, so I get that. I totally get that. Two things I can say to that is drawing is a skill that you can develop, and there's a ton of free resources online for things that you can do to develop your drawing skills. And you'd be surprised at how quickly you can develop those skills, at least more than currently, and that will be what's it called? Enough to help you feel like you're already getting past that issue. And then perfectionism, I totally get that. It's not an easy thing to do, but I would say there are some exercises that you can do to try and get around perfectionism as well, like specifically timed exercises can really help with that, because well, if you only have an hour to paint something, then it's done in an hour, and then it's done, right? Like that's it. It's done in an hour. But honestly, create more and don't worry about it being perfect is the best advice I can say. And if you have to, I know I had to do this personally. I had to kind of devalue my own paintings to myself, just so that I could just get through it. They became a lot less precious to me, each individual one, because I can always make another one, right? But it's a good thing, because now, I'm not held back so much by that. I just, if I mess up, I mess up, and that's fine. I'll do another one, it's not a big deal. I see. But I do get it. I suffer from the perfectionism thing too. Des makes fun of me a lot about that. Because I'll see oh, I'm done with the painting, and then I'll go back in and and do more. He always makes fun of me for that. Thank you for taking time to give me that advice. Yeah, absolutely. I just got a new sketchbook and decided I want to just practice in it. That's great. You know, one of the things I tried to do, this might, I don't know if will be helpful for you, but one of the things that I did was I had a few sketchbooks and my goal with those sketchbooks were to I had a goal to finish the sketchbooks. Uh, that says, I don't make fun of you, do I? Haha, sorry if I do. Sure, sure. Yeah, so I did buy some sketchbooks back in the day. Well, I bought many sketchbooks back in the day, of course. But I bought sketchbooks specifically with the goal to just finish them, like start them and finish them, and to finish them as fast as possible. And so, you can't, once again, you can't really be a perfectionist if you're trying to like blast through a sketchbook really fast. So that also personally helped me get over that a bit. Yes, I am. I am. I'm live on Twitch right now as well. You'll switch over. Okay, no problem. Whichever you prefer. I know the chat functions are nicer on Twitch. I um I prioritize YouTube a little in the sense of like I usually share the link for YouTube, not my Twitch and so on, but that's uh one because the link changes on YouTube. But also Twitch has been a bit more finicky generally speaking for me. So um so yeah. Love Augie. There we go. Okay. You're in Twitch. That says I'm a Twitchaholic. I get it. Twitch has a lot of things better. I get it. Love Augie says I prefer Twitch. Yeah, I get that too. I do get it. Yeah, I when I first started streaming, and I started streaming and then I took quite a bit of a break and then I came back to it. I met a lot of really cool people on Twitch, and a lot of really cool communities and other artists here. It was really great. A lot of them have since stopped streaming, unfortunately. Um, and yeah, it feels a little less cohesive than it used to, but yeah, it's just easier to use and minimize while doing other things. Hey, whatever works best for you, whatever works. It's all good. As most people encourage sharing, etc. Um, oh, this says, yeah, the artist community can be good here. Yeah, it really is. Um, it's just a shame some of the people have left. I'm sure they've been replaced by other people. I'm not as aware of the other people anymore. I find it, like I said, I used to watch more Twitch, but I had a long break where uh, Twitch wouldn't let me log in for no apparent reason. Um, and then it resolved itself and let me log in again. Um, and so I kind of like lost track of and lost just kind of lost the, I guess I don't know what I'm trying to say exactly. Just not interest, but yeah, just stopped watching it as much. Yeah. Lavagi says, yeah, true. I've had some very nice communities here that die out a little after a while. Yeah, it's unfortunate. Yes, Des is right. Don Lee is also an artist on Twitch. He's in the chat right now. He's AFK at the moment, but he's really nice and his streams are really cool. It's also worth mentioning on YouTube, I do have YouTube videos, not just live streams. So, you know, there is that. Oh, and if anyone likes or subscribes or does any of that stuff, I sincerely apologize if I don't respond or say anything. I do appreciate it. I just have too many things open on my, on my computer that I just can't have that open at the same time as well. So I don't get those notifications. But that doesn't mean I don't appreciate it. It just means I can't really see it. So I apologize for not acknowledging, but I do appreciate it. It's too many windows. If you saw my screens, it's just like chat, OBS, then the stream windows, and then Photoshop. Hey, there's Donnelly. Oh, and we have a Discord too for anyone who wants to join. It's a pretty quiet Discord, which, personally I think is I know Discords can be overwhelming, but it's a very responsive Discord at the same time. So, people respond and people react when people message. So, thank you, Des. One day I'll remember to look up how to put a command in for the Discord. I still need to figure out for the Discord I need to figure out if I need to turn it into like a community Discord or keep it the way it is. For anyone who doesn't know, there's a technical, like, Discord has you can turn your Discord into a community Discord, and it's a specific thing. I haven't figured out which one is the right solution for me yet. If anyone's a Discord expert, by all means, let me know. But yeah, if you have painting questions, want to talk about, paint, art related stuff, Discord's nice. Alrighty. Donley says, really didn't know there was a different setting for community in Discord. Wonder what's the difference. So there's a few things off the top of my head that I remember. It's like, first of all, you have to be more careful with not safe for work related stuff. And it has to be open, like more open to people joining it. Like it ends up going into like a list of, like servers kind of thing. So there's that, but you do get, my understanding is you do get some more tools to help deal with like people being problematic or difficult. Um, but yeah, other than that, I'm not entirely sure. That's why I'm not sure, you know, if I should convert mine to a community or not. So I guess if I had the answers, I would let you know. Been so long since I painted anyone where their eyes were big enough for me to actually paint the shadow from the upper eyelid. Okay, Lovagi says, you said you have Photoshop open. Is that where you have your reference? When you sketch out your base, is it just rough base or does it carry details? Yes, I have Photoshop open. That is where I have my reference. I also use a painting trick where I take photos as I'm like throughout the painting process. I take photos of my painting and I overlay it on top of my reference. They are proportionately the same proportions. Um, and so I can see them, you know, I can overlay them and see where things are located and if anything's out of place. Um, it's a very useful technique. I do, um, you know, you have to be careful with techniques like this because you don't want to be over reliant on things, but it is very useful still. And as far as my layouts are very rough now. I don't do a lot of detail, but I used to. So it's definitely changed over time. I used to do more detailed layouts. Uh, now I go very, very rough. But you know, that's something that happened over time. That wasn't instant, you know. That says, yeah, you can turn the opacity down and see through to make sure things line up and make adjustments if needed. Yeah, I also use a filter called glowing edges, which is a filter that like turns your turns the reference into like a neon like glowing edges. It's in the name. And I overlay that on top of my painting to really see the edges. Um, it's very helpful, but it's a lot. I'll say it's not as easy as you might think it is because there's so much there's so much landmarks and noise that you have to like contend with. But it is still helpful. Um, I have done other techniques, like a lot of people are familiar with using the grid system. I used to do that. I find it very tedious and slow, and I don't like it. Um, in the past, I have used a projector. Um, Projectors are, they have their benefits and their issues. Um, I prefer this one. If I were doing a very, very complex composition or something, I might, um, I don't know, I might uh, maybe use a projector or something else, but probably not at this point. I guess for speed, but I don't know. It just kind of depends. I'm not a fan. I'm not that much a fan of using those other techniques. I just don't enjoy how it feels to paint with them. But there's, nothing wrong with using any of those techniques if that's how you, uh, you know, go about things. One thing I noticed with this is some of my accuracy actually has improved over time with this technique because you still have to measure things out. And so I think because of that, some of my accuracy has still improved over time. Whereas I don't feel like my accuracy in placement would have improved if I had used any other techniques. But um, yeah. And you don't have to use Photoshop. There's other programs out there that you can use too. I think the case of VR for transferring an image for a mural art is really exciting. It is. For murals especially. I know I've seen people who, claim to use it. I do wonder how accurate it is. But the idea of it's really good, especially for, like you said, especially for murals. Um, Absolutely. Only reason I question it is because I have an like a what do they call it? An AR app. Um, there's there's an AR app that you can get for your phone, which is supposed to, like, on your phone, using your phone's camera, place the your reference image, and it's supposed to, like, stick it to the location. What you do is you make this little anchor mark thing, and by using that anchor, it's supposed to be able to, you know, virtually stick the reference on the location, but it doesn't do a good job of it. And I know that the VR systems are probably more accurate than a little phone app. However, you know, it's not a good look where it's barely functional. You know what I mean? So if it's barely functional, um, I question the VR ones. What's the app? Um, I think it's called DaVinci Eye or something like that. Yeah, it's not a completely useless app, to be clear. There are ways of making it useful, um, but you have to kind of work around it basically. You Because you can use the VR, not the VR, the AR stuff, or you can do it manually. And manually is it's more of a pain in the ass because you have to, like, lock it down and everything. But I feel like that's the way to go with that because it actually functions. In theory, there's other ways of doing it too. If you can use in theory, if you can use a camera to, like, film, the like film yourself painting, and then if you can overlay the image and yourself kind of thing and project it to your phone or something like that. In theory, you could also do that. It would be the setup would be probably a pain, but you know, if you're doing a big mural, that might be worth it. It would be, you know, I think it'd be very difficult if you were by yourself but doing murals by yourself is just hard anyways. I actually know someone who does murals and he uses a projector, like a very small, not small, powerful, but small projector. And he will set it up sometimes across the road and do the mural. But the problem with that is it means he has to work at night, which, you know, has its benefits, especially with the heat, but, you know, also can be, you know, a little sketchy and a little more difficult in other ways. But yeah, he works at night because of that. When he's setting up a painting, after he sets it up, he you know, can keep working. But that is also another disadvantage of the projector, right? Once you have everything set up, it's almost I don't want to say useless, but it's a lot harder to use a projector midway. Um, you know, it's a lot harder because you're projecting onto the, you know, the painting, and it gets really weird. Actually, some of the people, I don't know if there was this trend for a while, if you've seen it on online, where people were doing these drawings where it looked like they were a printer, the way that they would just draw from like top to bottom or bottom, you know, bottom to top or whatever, and they would do it perfectly with like no mistakes, you know, but it's like a, you know, no sketch pre-done, nothing. They just like a printer, right? And one of the people who did that, my understanding is he actually just does it. However, I guess he got famous for doing that. But regardless, if you want to cheat that, the way to do it is um, you essentially set up a camera to film yourself, to film your hand, and then you can overlay in the computer. You can overlay the image, you know, the reference image or of whoever you're painting or drawing or whatever you're drawing, you know, and and then you're looking, you know, you're just looking at the computer, and you know, you're drawing like a printer that way, but you know, you're just tracing in like, we'll say, awkward steps instead of like, you know, normal tracing. But yeah, that's how some people fake that. I don't want to say everyone, because some people, I'm sure, worked really hard to be able to do that, but that's how I know some people have faked it. Donley says, didn't 1000 or maybe it was Jazzer call an artist out for that method? Yeah, it was Jazza. Maybe someone else did, but Jazza did too. Back when I liked him. Unfortunately, I will not watch any more Jazza, at least for the foreseeable future. Lavagi says, I hear a story in the back when I liked him. Yeah, well, I like Jazza. I think he's a nice guy, and he's a good artist, and he's entertaining and everything. It's just his brother sucks. And his brother is very pro AI art, and I feel like Jazza entertained him a little too much in that category, and hasn't really spoken out enough about this stuff. Like Jazza is, he likes technology and stuff like that, and when you're the thing is when you're big enough, AI art isn't really a threat and is very beneficial. I get that. I get it. But just because it fulfills those things for you doesn't mean that it does for everybody else. That's my issue with it, you know? And yeah, there's been a few channels and a few artists that I've unfollowed and stopped watching because of their support for AI art. And don't get me wrong, I don't feel like you have to be like you can say like I understand the concern. I don't think it's going to be, that bad. I don't think like you're allowed to have your opinion, of course. But yeah. Love Augie says, "Oh, I didn't know his brother was such an AI art fan. I know he's into history, so maybe that is where it comes from, filling this need to see more history that exists." No, okay, I'm going to play a little bit of psychologist, pop psychologist here. His brother wants to be an artist. His older brother wants to be an artist, and he's not good enough. And not that he couldn't be good enough, he hasn't developed the skill. Art is a skill. You practice it, you get better. He hasn't, uh, and he really wants to. And so he has made excuses and doubled down on the whole AI art stuff, claiming that it's, the things he makes is his art. The things that he makes with it is his unique art and so on. And it's like, yeah, no, buddy, I'm sorry. It's just not, um, you know, and anytime, if he ever, he posted, he posted like a perfect image one time that kind of proves that like it really isn't, which I have it saved because it's such a funny image. So um he did a bunch of painting AI images of like Supergirl, and he made them all with his wife's face for some reason. And then, but there's one where like he does all this photoshopping to it and does all these, image gens and all this stuff to it. And then in the Superwoman's hand, like she's standing there, camera, and her hand's like by her side. Imagine this is by her side, and inside of the hand, there's a tiny little hand, like a little baby hand holding on to it. And it's just like, oh, come on. There's no way, this isn't your art, because why would there be a little baby hand there? Like, clearly, this is just the computer doing everything for you. Just like, it's just, that's what it is. That's what this stuff is. And it bothers you that Jazza hasn't spoken up against it? No, I would be okay if he didn't speak up against it, because what is he going to do? Shit all over his brother? I think he should, but for other reasons, that's a different thing. But, fine, okay, I get it. He's your brother, his family, I get it. But he had him on his channel, and his brother, gave all the reasons why he likes AI art and all the reasons, and like he basically let his brother, promote it and give all the excuses and everything. And he didn't push back enough, because now you're actively promoting it, right? And he's had a few more videos where he's talked about it, and he talks about the fact that they use AI art in their company as placeholders and stuff like that. But that they, but they have a dedicated artist, and that dedicated artist actually works a lot more now than ever before because of the AI and, all this other stuff. But it just, I don't know. All of those things combined make me not want to like necessarily support him over it, because it's one of those things where it's like, I do understand why people will use AI as a tool. If a tool exists and you can find a way of using it, people are going to use it. But you can, to give an example from something else, like, okay, cell phones. Cell phones are great, right? I mean, obviously some people have issues with them, but like the technology is great. Cell phones are fantastic, right? There's a lot of use for them and so on. Cell phones have some very, very problematic ethical issues behind them with how they're made and everything, right? That doesn't mean that cell phones inherently are bad. It's just like the way that they make them currently is bad. There are ways of making cell phones differently. Maybe it would change the price. There's all kinds of things that you could talk about, but cell phones aren't inherently an issue, right? And the truth is, that is the same with AI, with the AI technology. There are ways of making it useful. There are ways of doing it where you're not screwing over everybody and trying to replace all the workers and stealing people's stuff. But, so I understand why people will continue to use it, but that doesn't mean that I don't have issues with it overall, And the thing is, if you have a huge voice like Jazza, and it's in your field, and it is something that you're knowledgeable about, and you like technology, I'm not going to judge a lot of people for, not knowing, not understanding, not being a part of the certain industries, not being, like, I get it. It's impossible to know everything and to be caught up on everything. But this is very much in his wheelhouse. And I feel like there's a place where he could be against it, even if he uses it. It might seem counterintuitive, but I really feel like you can kind of skirt that line of being like, as long as it's available, as long as there's a way I can use it where I personally use it in an ethical way where I'm, and it's not harming others, and, I could, but I'm still against how it was produced, how it was made. And I wish that they would, there would be some, well, preferably laws and other things around it. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of my feeling on it. Like I said, I get it. It's his brother. You don't need to, you don't need to shit all over him. You don't need to get into fights over things, but you have a big platform here that can really affect how people view things. I know some other artists, for instance, who use AI to generate reference images, and I see a ton of problem with that. Um, but in theory, right, that's fine, and it's a cool tool for that. I see it, like I said, I do see a ton of problems with it that I feel like they kind of ignore, but whatever. Um, but I get it. If you have a tool that can make infinite, reference images, there's something appealing about that, right? In theory. I made a mistake using the filbert here. I should have used my flat. And to give another example, I do use AI to help me write my scripts for my videos. But I don't have it write for me. I write my scripts and then I run it through the AI to kind of smooth things over. And then I have to rewrite it again because it sometimes, it goes too generic or too simple, or it doesn't understand, it messes something up and so on. But I'm dyslexic, and so I have a hard time like forming my ideas sometimes. So I just kind of like get it out, and then it helps me clean it up a little bit. Um, but like I said, I do write the whole thing first. I'm never like, hey, can you write my script for me? Never do that. I don't even know how it would handle that. Yeah, AI has a place, but needs to be kept in its place. I agree. There's definitely a place for it. And the best example I can give as a tool is like Photoshop has implemented AI in a lot of really negative ways. However, it's also implemented it in a really great way. Um, you know, for instance, there's a tool in Photoshop that now like lets you get rid of, like, let's say you took a photo of you know um, a landscape, a building, and there's like a ton of wires hanging from like the power, electrical power lines, right? There's a tool that can like get rid of all those power lines, and it's not perfect, of course, but it saves so much work by doing so much of the heavy lifting. Perfect. That's great. That's a useful tool. And it uses, generative AI to do that. Okay, cool. I don't care. That's a useful tool. Love Augie says, I've got a teaching degree, and even though I'm not teaching right now, I'm so worried for my future students not doing their homework. Uh, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I totally get that. The thing that also kills me, of course, when it comes to art, the thing that kills me about AI is that, like, how it steals from everybody, of course. But the other thing that kills me about all the people who like do AI art, and if like, look, if you're using it as a meme machine, right? Like, sure, I get it. It's perfect. It's so, it's perfectly built to be a meme machine, right? Like, I get that. But if you're doing like your own personal art, I don't want anyone to do my art for me. Why would I ever want a machine to do it for me? Like, I don't understand that concept. It's so foreign. I just, like, I can't wrap my head around that. It's just so like, why, what, like, what? What do you mean? Like, why would I don't understand. What's, what's the point then? Oh, shoot. I need to give my camera a minute to cool off. Des says the most our teacher had to worry about was kids using Cole's notes. LOL. That was back in the ancient times, 40 years ago. I don't know what Cole's notes are, but it might be because you're Canadian. But yeah. No, I totally get it. If I was growing up now, if I was in school now, I totally would use Chat GPT to do all my homework for me. Absolutely. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm just saying, as a child, that's what I probably would have done. But that kind of goes to the point. I didn't love my homework, you know, but I would never have anything do my art for me. I don't even understand the people who have, the artists who have like teams who do their art for them. I don't even understand that. I sort of understand people who have like an apprentice, or not even an apprentice, even like teams where they like, they, if you're doing like a mural, for instance, or something large, and you need to like cover the, get things done. I understand having other people kind of set it up for you and then you do the finish on it if they're people you've like worked with before, and like I kind of get that, but that's like the extent of it. Des says it was a thin little book put out that summarized books. I get it. Themes, characters, etc. They were used to write essays without reading the book. I see. I see. I'm going to grab another brush. I need a brush that's a little softer and doesn't kind of play the way that other brush does, more uniformed. Let me go grab that real quick. So this brush is both a little softer and also more uniform. So it'll let me smooth things out a little where I need it to. Alrighty, let's see here. I didn't like some of the texture that that brush created here, so I'm gonna go in and fix that. This brush is starting to splay as well, I see. Hmm. This is one of the benefits uh, of painting a guy. It's not as big of an issue if you add some texture to their face. If you're trying to paint generally attractive women or young children, you really have to get things, or it's very helpful to get things a lot smoother, we'll put it that way, generally speaking. Craggly old men is the easiest in that sense. This is where everything being wet can be difficult because as I put paint down, I can also lift paint. And as I put paint down, I can also blend into what's already there. So you have to be, or I have to be pretty deliberate with the paint I put down and also not put down too much at once. So what happens is I put down some paint and then I reload my brush and then I wipe off my brush and do it again and so on. Uh, because otherwise it just starts blending and it becomes a mess. Yeah. Love Augie says, I hear children are hard to get accurate. They are. Um, they absolutely are because they also have like weird proportions. And like I said, you have to get you know, you have to get the features, the smooth skin and everything. It means it's one of those things where the more you work on it, the like worse it looks almost. Not exactly, but it has that kind of feeling of like you want to touch it as little as possible kind of thing. And the same thing for women a lot of times. And it's also the other thing is you want smooth transitions. You want a lot of smooth, flattering, soft edges, stuff like that. Hard edges don't, are necessary, but they don't always lend themselves to those things. And so a lot of hard edges can be a problem, when you're painting uh, women and children. I suppose it also applies to like, very pretty men if you want to do like very, pretty men or whatever. But like if you want to do very, you know, what's it called? Like masculine men, it's okay to do a lot of hard edges. Like generally speaking, people aren't going to mind that. Donnelly says, yeah, hard edges, very masculine, cat emote. You hear? Yeah. Like anything, there are ways of making everything work, but it's just a lot harder. Or maybe not as intuitive. So this right now, what I'm trying to do is I'm laying in the eyelashes and just getting the color in, and I'm going to have to go paint kind of around them, sort of. Donnelly says, you never notice how much you misclick until it's gone. I just got a new mouse and it's completely silent, weirding me out. That's funny. But yeah, a new mouse can mess you up, that's for sure. Let's see. So definitely made a ton of progress. It's all in the face, the details right now. A little bit of hair, a little bit of the eyes, it's just kind of refining it now. But I need to take a break because I will start messing up if I continue. I need to take a break and get something to eat, and then I can get back to it. But I won't do that on stream because most of the rest of the time I'm going to be spending like this. So my head's going to be in the way, and yeah, because I'm just going to have my glasses on and be like, painting in those fine details. Where's the kitty? Um, I don't know. Let me see if I can find one nearby. But I don't know where they all are at right now. They're all just napping. Here's a Winnie. She'll be angry, but it's okay. It's not Dresden. Dresden's the only one who's like super patient about being held. But yeah, this is Winnie. She doesn't really like being held that much. She likes being on my lap, but she doesn't like being held. Dresden is my orange boy, and he doesn't mind it usually, but I don't know where he's at right now. Meow. I know, little girl. I know. It's good for her though to like get used to it, you know? Orange boys are crazy. They are. So is Dresden. He is very much an orange boy. Let me see real quick if I have it here. Ah, there it is. I did a painting of him. Stupid. Yeah. You're currently reading Stephen King's Pet Cemetery. Nice. Lavagi says, my parents have an orange boy and he is nuts. Yeah. Yeah, he's the same. He's adorable though. He's he's such a sweetheart and he's not very bright. That's the big issue. Oh, thanks, Stanley. Yes, he's a floof boy. Yeah. He's very curious, not very bright. It's a very interesting combination. Um, but yeah, I don't know where he's at right now. Anyways, Lavagi, thank you for stopping by. And oh, I'm gonna hold on. Let me see. There's another new person. Uh, it's whatever. Yes, it's whatever. Well, and if I missed anybody else, welcome to all the new people. I appreciate you being here. I stream Wednesdays and Sundays, unless, you know, there's something unique. But yeah, and I don't know, join my Discord, visit my website. I have YouTube videos hopefully coming out again. And yeah. Um, I don't know, my mind's just 3 hours of streaming and my brain just goes to mush. So thank you all for being here, and I hope to see you in the future, and have a good night or day or whatever time it is for you. Bye, everyone.